Well, hi everybody, it's Nadeem from Colin Campbell Chemicals here. I'm here at a lovely GIS in San Diego. It is the second day of the conference, day 2 on the Tuesday. And to start off my podcast series again, I am happy to say that, back by popular demand, I've got Pat Jones from GIE Media with me. And also got another friend of mine who I met a few years ago, I think it was the Orlando conference, Paul Koch from the University of Wisconsin. So Paul and Pat have been gracious enough with their time today to answer a few questions and hopefully get some answers for you guys who are watching here. I'll just firstly get Pat to introduce yourself again to the audience, and hopefully it's a few new guys that may not know you, especially in Australia more so than, say, the US and Canada.
Well, hopefully if you've heard of this thing called Twitter, you follow golf course industry on Twitter, and we are a magazine in the U.S., but we have a global presence thanks to the social media networks, and so I would encourage you to check us out at golfcourseindustry.com to learn more about what we do. And I've been a writer in this business for, get ready for this, 31 years.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary. So it's wonderful. It's my favorite business in the world because people are great, and it's sort of a fraternity and sorority and a bunch of good people. So I love what I get to do because I get to work with guys like this, too.
Paul, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure. Assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin, and we focus mostly on turfgrass diseases, looking at different aspects of fungicide resistance and precision disease management. We can talk about using technology to really target where your fungicides are going. We have a couple different projects looking at that. A lot of fungicide fate work, looking at the phytobiome and how we can kind of harness microbes to help manage disease. So we've got a bunch of different exciting projects, but I agree with Pat. The best part about my job is working with the industry, working with people like yourself and Pat and superintendents.
You
on a daily
just
basis.
made up phytobiome.
I did not.
Is that a thing?
It's a thing. It's
Okay.
the whole microbes.
I'm an English major.
with
I think we will talk about that because I do want to talk a little bit about the future, where the industry's going, where the turf industry's going in general. Because it's like, even though we're at a golf show, in Australia, this is going out. Well, this will go out to all my contacts who are in sports fields, bowling greens, schools, universities, everything like that. So everything. It's all turf related, all golf related, but it's all everything related. Paul, can you say where Wisconsin, for the guys who don't know where Wisconsin is?
Australians don't know exactly where Wisconsin is?
I know where Wisconsin is. I'm not sure if some of the people know where Wisconsin is.
North central part of the U.S., just north of Chicago. So when I travel internationally, I say Chicago.
Okay.
It's close to the Arctic Circle.
Oh, it's not that bad.
So, because it's like, when I guess it's like the guys know Los Angeles, they know New York, they know the Carolinas.
Yep.
You always hear about the Carolinas. Chicago, they know, so they can get
just
an
north
idea.
of Chicago.
Most importantly, you're in the disease capital of the universe.
It's very diseasey. We got both winter diseases and summer diseases.
So it's good to know.
It's good job security.
It's like when Scott McElroy has come out. It's like, he puts America on top and he goes, I'm down here because Alabama, Auburn, that's a suburb of ours in Sydney. That's what Auburn is. So so I do get to explain. All right, well, might as well get right into it. One of the things I remember seeing a lot about your work, Paul, was in regards to Dollar Spot. And there's been a name change. This is probably going to take a lot of time for people to accept. Not so much accept, but to actually realise it. Can you tell us a little bit about why and how that came about?
Yeah, so this can get very quickly into a nerdy scientist discussion. But what happened is Lisa Baird and Joanne Crouch, two scientists. Joanne's with the USDA. Lisa's now with Syngenta. At the time, she was with Rutgers. And they looked at a whole bunch of different isolates, did some genetic mapping of them and how they related to each other, and actually broke them up into 4 different species. So it's no longer Sclerotinia homoeocarpa. It's a new genus called Claridia. Very. I say chlamydia about half the time, so you're just gonna say that. And so Claridia is the genus. If it's on cool season turf, it's Claridia jacksonii, and if it's on warm season turf, dollar spot on warm season turf is Claridia bennetii.
Jacksonii being
Noel Jackson. Yep. And
Oh,
Claridia actually comes from Reed Funk, old turfgrass breeder at Rutgers. So right if you do a new classify a new fungus, you can name it whatever you want, and so that's what they decided. What's more important though for superintendents and turf managers to realize is not how it relates to other pathogens, but that there's more genetic diversity, I think, in the pathogen system than we previously thought. So there's why that's important for superintendents is that the dollar spot that you have at a course in Sydney, maybe a few miles down the road, a different course, they might still have dollar spot, but it might be genetically different. So it might need to be managed differently through resistance, through response to different hosts, response to cultural practices. So again, it gets back to managing the dollar spot that's on your course the best way for your location, not necessarily because the guy down the road, it works for him.
What are the number one disease issues in Australia?
Well, it all depends on where you are in Australia. Sydney is like, we've got the whole kettle. We'll have with dollar spot, we'll have certain guys in the shoulder seasons get very high pressure dollar spot, and what you said makes sense. Where one person will have it, the guy down the road doesn't have it. Why? Or doesn't have it as bad. Why? We do not know. Pythium, anthracnose is getting very difficult to under control. Fair earring is always difficult, and the patch diseases. Down in Melbourne, they're getting more of the patch disease, getting more rhizoctonia, especially in the soil. Anthracnose is getting more so.
Do you feel part of that is climate change?
Yes, more probably management. Okay. I think climate change, where what we're seeing is prolonged disease periods, where before used to go, Australia Day weekend, which was just last week on the 25th of January, we can start, putting the brakes on, start relaxing a bit. Now we're looking probably another month to 6 weeks until we can really start relaxing. And
sound familiar?
Yeah. I mean, talking about climate change. I mean, I think it's without a doubt having an impact on turf diseases in the U.S. Right, and it's maybe more subtle than we might originally think. But a disease like gray leaf spot, that's clearly moving northward. We diagnosed that at two sites in Chicago. We've never seen it north of central Illinois before. We've diagnosed it in northern Ohio. Right, so this is a disease that was traditionally a hot, warm weather disease that did not get into the upper parts of the country, and now last year was huge problems with gray leaf spot in the mid-Atlantic, northeast, places where you would get it but not typically be severe. Overcoming cultivars that had resistance, so just changing. It's going to change how we're going to manage golf courses.
Okay, that's interesting. One of the things I keep on hearing, I think ever since I've started coming to GIS, funding for research has been cut, reduced. Is that actually the case? From both points of view, but you get around quite a bit. Paul, what do you see? Have you seen your research budget cut over the years, or is it just getting placed differently?
Well, I mean, funding has never been great for turf, right? So you get your funding from different areas. We get it from industry funding. So this could be chemical efficacy testing, right? We do quite a bit of fungicide product testing, and that, for me, that's been pretty stable. That has not fallen, even though there's been changes in the fungicide industry. That's remained pretty stable. You get support from associations like GCSAA, our local chapters. That has remained pretty consistent. USGA's funding has actually increased a little bit. And so those are all positive things. It's still remarkably difficult to get the large federal grants from the USDA. Very difficult. There are some avenues, but they're very difficult to get, and there's maybe one big turf project a year. Well, I'm involved in a couple of them. And but those are the ones that really allow you to hire on multiple staff and do these big projects, whereas so you're kind of always cobbling together different things. So I think funding has been relatively stable, but one thing, costs are going up, right? Costs always go up for everybody, and most universities that I talk to, the cost of hiring your graduate student has gone up, or you have to pay them more, you have to pay them to be able to survive. And so those costs are going up, costs for different supplies. I mean, all that sort of stuff is going up, and funding is remaining stable, maybe increasing a little bit. So it's still a challenge, but I think it's always been a challenge.
Yeah.
So.
And Pat, what about yourself? Because you travel all around the States. Are you seeing from the universities, you're hearing that, or from the chapter associations and those type of things? Are they saying to you, going, yeah, we're just not have the money to do what we want?
There's a few things. It's really a struggle to get the size of collegiate turfgrass education programs has dramatically decreased over the years. And 15 years ago, there may have been as many as 1,200 young people coming out of universities, small colleges, big colleges, every year with some kind of a turf degree, 2 or 4 year degree. That number is down to a couple hundred people now. So universities are looking around saying, okay, research is one thing, but we're not sure this is a marketable degree anymore. So it's not only hard to get funding sometimes, it's hard to keep those professorships in turf, because they're looking around and saying, well, why would we want to invest in this as a professorship when we can invest in biotech or whatever else? So that's one thing. The second thing, and this is changing a little bit, is the federal government just doesn't want to fund turfgrass research. And they look at our industry and they see, oh, you're golf, you're affluent, you're well off, you could support yourselves. So it's very, very difficult to get federal funding. There's been a few examples recently where it's happened. And I don't want to get too wonky about this, but our big farm bill that passed the U.S. Every few years they pass a new farm bill, and they just passed one, and it included turfgrass as a crop for the first time, to my knowledge, ever. So that opens the door to the potential for more federal funding for, I think, really great programs around the country. for the first time in a long time. So yeah, it is a struggle. The expectation is that we'll fund ourselves, and that's really, really hard in this environment. So it's not likely to get much better anytime soon. Now that said, the one thing, and I would hope that you guys have done this down here, when we go talk to Washington every year and we lobby, and there's a couple hundred of us who go, and it's National Golf Day, and we tell those legislators and those committee leaders a few things. Number one, golf is an $86 billion U.S. market. That's bigger than the furniture business. It's bigger than the motion picture business. It's crazy big. So it has a huge economic impact in the United States. We employ 2 million people. Golf touches 2 million jobs a year, and we raise about $4.5 billion annually for charity. So when you're able to go in and tell Congress people and officials that story, it gets our attention. So I'm hopeful that we'll continue to get better at that, and the funding will come in the future. But for now, it's a struggle.
Yeah. Going off that real quick, with the decline in numbers of the 4 years turf students, we're having a really tough time getting graduate students to help out with research. Right, this is getting to be a critical sort of need. And I think you talk to any turf professor anywhere in the country, and getting those that used to be our supply line. You'd go, you'd target, you look at the undergraduates in your program, you kind of target the good ones, the ones that have potential for doing further research, and we don't, with fewer undergrads, we have fewer grad students coming out of turf.
Yeah, well, we're seeing that. It's like when we briefly spoke off camera about the labour shortage and the likes like that. We're seeing that in Australia. Yeah. It's like, we can get because we got the apprenticeship system through us, not through the universities or anything like that, even though we've just got a university degree just opened up again, an undergraduate again, which Phil Ford is running. But yeah, it is hard to get them because the attractiveness of the industry, when I first started, or when the older guys in the industry always say to me going, it was the start early, finish early, you can then work and go and mow lawns for the afternoon, or go for a surf, which a lot of guys did.
Sign me up.
But these days it's like going, no, I want the $30-40 an hour. We can't pay that. Like our wages are higher. The guys $22 an hour, they can get $5-6 an hour more going packing shelves at a supermarket.
That's exactly right.
And we're finding that struggle in Australia. I think it's very similar here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that goes, I guess, with the future of labour and the likes. Like on the trade show floor, and I remember, Pat, I think I read an article that you wrote in the magazine about the automation of machinery and the like. So if we can have a bit of a discussion about the future of where the industry will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, from the labour point of view, but also the scientific point of view. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, there's no question that automation is coming, because we simply, it's not even a spending issue anymore. I talked to a lot of golf courses where they, most places, their budget for labor is 56% of their overall budget, right? And it used to be, it's not enough, we can't hire enough people, and now it's, we can't hire people at all. Nobody wants to come work for us. They would rather go work, instead of $11 an hour at a golf course, you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and cold and heat and all those things, they can go work at Amazon and pack boxes for $15 an hour and work whatever shifts they want and have decent benefits. So it's just not feasible to think that that's going to change. It's not. So automation is coming in the form of robotic mowers. Most likely, right now we've already got greens mowers, the Precise Path RG3 product that's a Cub Cadet product. But fairway mowers are coming too. John Deere at the show just announced that they formed a partnership with a robotics company, and they've demoed some fairway mowers, some units that are robotically controlled. So the idea is not to replace labor. The idea is to reallocate labor and be able to use your trained, talented people for tasks that take trained, talented people instead of mowing fairways. So it's still in its infancy, but 5 years from now, I think it'll be relatively common, and 10 years from now, I think it'll be 20 or 25% of fairway acreage is mowed by robotic mowers.
Is it going to take away from the industry? And some people are against it because they think they're going to take away from the industry, they're going to take away jobs of the qualified guys.
We can't hire them to begin with. So you're not taking jobs away from anybody. You're using this to supplement a labor force that's too small to do what you want to get done. And let's use humans for the detail work. The mowing bunker or edging bunkers and raking and making sure the ball washers don't stink, and all of those things that sometimes get lost in the shuffle when you're busy trying to mow fairways and everything else. So it's a lot of acreage and a lot of labor. I think it's inevitable.
No. What do you see in the scientific world? There's like, you were talking about a little bit about the photobiomes and the likes like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is all that? What's coming? It's not like a silver bullet, but it's just evolutionary.
I'll focus on two things. Both things that we're working on in Wisconsin. I know other people are working on as well. One thing I'll talk about is site-specific management or precision disease management, and that is basically using data to pinpoint and predict where on the golf course you're going to get disease, and then only treat those areas of the golf course. Right now, if you have 30 acres of fairways, you're probably going to, anytime you go out and spray for dollar spot, you're probably going to spray almost all 30 acres of fairways. From a disease management standpoint, I can almost guarantee you don't have the same level of pressure over the entire 30 acres. It doesn't make much sense to go out and spray the entire 30 acres. But you need to have a way to be able to predict where on the golf course the disease is going to occur. So we have our Smith-Kearns dollar spot model that we've been working with for a number of years. And now where we're going with it, we have a small grant from the USDA where we're working with Toro about putting small weather stations around the golf course that just that have the dollar spot model loaded on there, and that allows you to measure sort of kind of almost like a heat map where in the golf course disease is going to be most active, and then you just go target those small areas. And different golf courses, maybe a certain golf course would have 30 different kind of microclimates. Others might have 2 or 3. It's going to be based on the course. And some superintendents will love it. Others will be less. But I think that's where it's going, right? You only treat the areas that's needed, and that there might be some regulatory issues that come up with that as well. Why spray all 30 acres if only 2 acres needed? And so, but we need some data to support that.
Our precision sprayer is going to have an impact there too, because now we've got variable heads, and we've got all sorts of software that can help you decide. Help the machine where to spray.
It's a logical partnership to have to match up the dollar spot model and other disease predictive models with the GPS sprayers. It would basically kind of spray itself, right? You go out with the sprayer, and the nozzles would turn on right where the heat map, the software told it the disease was going to be most active. So I think it's a natural progression, natural partnership there. But I think that's where we're going. Is you only spray where it's needed, but we need the data to support that. Talking about phytobiomes, phytobiomes is basically just the microbial community that's surrounding a plant. And the gut microbiome is one that a lot of people know about, and probiotics and all that sort of stuff, showing huge impacts in human health. And there's likely huge impacts that can be harnessed for turfgrass management. The key is we're collecting a ton of data. What do we do with that data? How do we manipulate and change the phytobiome so that it's beneficial to us? So it's kind of a form of biocontrol using the microbial community to really try and harness and control disease. We have some examples where we can manipulate the phytobiome to control dollar spot through next-gen applications. We have some evidence of that we're exploring further. So I think there's a lot of different opportunities there, and the ability to collect the data and analyze the data is becoming cheaper. That's the big advancement in the past 10 years. So it's exciting, it's confusing, there's a lot of stuff going on. So.
And are you seeing then more different players coming into the market with this newer technology, or is it the existing sort of companies that are there that are adapting it, or both?
I think it's both. And it's got to be both. The smart ones are adapting to it, right? Because it's where we're going. Many new products that come to the market are going to have a narrow, targeted impact, right? The old, obviously we don't spray the mercury anymore, and there's a reason we don't spray mercury anymore. And so new products come on are targeted. I know, Bayer has quite a bit of investment in doing biologicals, and I think, that'll be important for managing turf diseases moving forward. I think it'll play a larger part in the industry than it does now.
Yeah, the automation is going to come there too. It is inevitable, and frankly, that's technology that's existed in the ag market for ages. So we're kind of late to the game, but it's hard for companies, particularly our big manufacturers, to scale that stuff down. So we've seen a few companies come in independently that are offering kits that you can put on the back of a Gator or a Workman or whatever else, and build your own GPS-driven precision spray system, and they're relatively affordable compared to buying your own thing. Now, there's a lot to be said for buying a whole brand new sprayer, but I just think it's going to be something that clubs are going to want to have to show their leadership and the community we're doing the right thing. We're being responsible, and we're only using the amount we have to use.
Yeah.
So
it'll save money too.
It will, and hopefully they'll reinvest that in quality products.
It's really well, because one of the things, the communication of what we do as a turf industry, whether it's golf or sports fields, it's not communicated how well we do it,
right,
and how well we actually do look after the environment and the like.
By the way, the sports field management industry is going to be revolutionized by robotic mowers, because the big issue in golf is fairway bunkers and objects in the field, or a tee box, or a popped up sprinkler head. You don't have that in sports fields. So, in the U.S. we have a ton of these big soccer complexes that have 40 or 50 soccer fields, or lacrosse fields, or whatever. Those things are prime candidates for robotic treatments.
Okay. Just the last thing, Paul. You've been doing there's a dollar spot essentially group started recently.
Yeah.
It was similar to the anthracnose. Guys who probably know, I spoke with Bruce Clark and Jim Murphy last year, just quickly in the anthracnose, and Bruce mentioned the dollar spot. I didn't get too much into it. Can you? Because I know a lot of guys hopefully watching this have dollar spot.
Yeah.
What to sort of work with? What's it all about?
So,
you don't hope they have dollar spot.
If you don't have dollar spot, great. If you have it, that's fine.
Almost every turf pathologist in the country in the U.S. is doing some sort of dollar spot work, and I think one of our shortcomings is that I don't have a great idea what everybody else is working on. So really, the point of this, what we're calling a dollar spot working group, is for everybody to get together once a year and just, what are you working on? What am I working on? What is redundant? What are we lacking in? And then we can sort of plan strategically for what are the greatest areas of need, and who in the country would do that particular work. So we do have it's called a pre-proposal into the USDA to fund basically travel for a meeting once a year for us as an industry.
Is that similar to the model they're using in the weed science area with the POA study? Is that where it's kind of an organized effort around 4 or 5 different universities?
It's not that formal, because they're actually getting funding to do the work. We would not get funding to do the work, so we would need to come up with additional funding to actually do the research. We would just get the funding to meet as a group.
Okay.
But that's still important.
Yep.
And so
still, it's such a great leap forward to have everybody collaborate.
Exactly. We should have been doing this years ago, just because everybody's doing great research, and oftentimes we don't communicate that well on what everybody's working on. And so this working group, I hope, make some of the same advancements in dollar spot management that the anthracnose working group did for anthracnose management. They just huge advances in how anthracnose is managed coming out of that working group.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of the same in dollar spot.
Definitely. Well, guys, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know very limited, but again, thank you very much for this. I really do appreciate it. Look, guys, if you are on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. If you are on Twitter and you haven't followed Paul or Pat, you're at Pat Jones Tweets. Paul, you're at
UW Paul.
That's right. I couldn't remember exactly. So please follow these guys. I will put it on the comments and the likes like that. Paul got a lot of his work published on the website. I'll put a link to that as well as GCI magazine. And GCI magazine, I kid you not, is one of the best publications I do read on a monthly basis. I'm not just saying that, Pat. I actually do read it all the time.
Thank you.
And definitely Paul's work. He's got a lot of great information on the website. So again, thank you guys. I'll definitely be seeing you hopefully next year, and we got to get you out to Australia.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's do it.
That is a plan.
I'll bring my surfboard.